Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a little bit since my last SoFi update, and I wanted to go through and show you everything that I'm looking at for this stock, as well as some future catalysts that might excite investors going forward. First up, let's take a look at where analysts are on this stock. Surprisingly, unlike most of the market where a lot of the companies that I'm covering, analysts are actually positive on because they're either software names or AI names, big tech names. SoFi is actually on a downside, negative nearly 10% from where we are today, from where the average analyst is. Now, that is a little bit skewed because some people like Giuliano Bologna have a $12 price target that he updated before earnings, has not changed it since, even though he went from a $6 price target to 12, which is essentially a doubling of where he was. It's still nowhere near and greatly drags down the total average. So the actual difference here of $12 to $38 on the high end, which is Dan Dolev, is so large. You rarely see this from normal companies where the difference between the lowest analyst and the highest analyst is more than a triple in market cap. Like, that's just crazy to me. As well as this, we also got an update on short interest. So this has actually started to climb back up. We were at the 150 or 150 million mark. That dropped all the way down to October 15th, where we got an update of 100 million. Now back up again, 16% increase to 116 million as of the midpoint of November. But this might have switched pretty quickly. As we can see, this last week, the last 5 trading days for SoFi has ran nearly 13%, 12.9%, and it was the second best week that SoFi has ever seen since being a public company. It was a significant recovery from the $25 ranges all the way up to $29. Now, we still have a little bit of ways to go to get to all-time highs again, which is around 32.70 something, if I remember correctly. But this might have been the real catalyst. The Fed decision, potentially cutting rates on next December 10th meeting, has now increased from a 30% chance of a 25 basis point cut up to 86.4%, or nearly 87%. That's really exciting, knowing that members are going to potentially see an additional 25 basis point cut could lead to an explosion in lending revenue for SoFi. Now, as we can see from a revenue split for Q3, the high majority, as much as we're excited for crypto and we're excited for a lot of these different things to come to SoFi, we are still a lending business. Nearly 48% of the total revenue is all lending revenue. Lending originations have even exploded. This is not just on personal loans, it's on home loans and student loans as well. But, the growth here has led to some pretty significant numbers. And as well as the loan sales, what's also baked into this loan sale of about $3.4 billion as of last quarter is actually the loan platform business. The loan platform business makes its money in financial services, but it's still technically a lending product. So if I go back here, there's actually a pretty significant slice of financial services that actually belongs over in lending. So it's actually more than 50% whenever you talk about the significance of rate cuts. This company is heavily weighted, okay? 45% of personal loan originations came from a very interest rate sensitive product, which is the LPB, the loan platform business. So no wonder if this is exploding and we're about to get a rate cut, that institutions are betting heavily on this company. Now, there's a divergence, right? Just like what we're seeing from analysts, the difference between $12 a share and $38, we're also seeing a divergence in the way that people are investing. Institutions are buying in heavily, going long on the company, meaning that they're very bullish. And then we're also seeing an increase in short interest. But I think after last week's big run up, that you will see a lot of those shorts end up covering and that rate go hopefully below 100 million shares. The next thing is that we got an updated commercial bank consolidated assets ranking. That is a mouthful. SoFi ended up getting to 53rd place, and this is where they've been over the last couple quarters, going from 240th place all the way down to 53rd. That's much better. We want to get to number 1, but JP Morgan is there. There's much bigger banks. But if you take a look at the growth that we've seen over the last couple of years, going from essentially $4.4 billion up to $41 billion, essentially a 10x in the last couple of years, it's been a significant change and acceleration in growth for SoFi. But this leads me to what's coming next, okay? Obviously, we know that SoFi has raised a bunch of money. Their CET1 or capital ratios have increased. In terms of their capital-based ratios, it's now above 20%. They don't need it that high. I don't want to confuse anyone, but it essentially means that there's a huge margin to continue to accelerate their growth and make a lot more money. Okay, so there's that. But then we're also seeing in October the highest number of total website traffic. And we also saw a very similar thing on downloads. However, I've only have the first 2 weeks of October. So far in those first 2 weeks, it was the best 2 weeks that SoFi has ever seen in public company history. Aside from the daily traffic being the highest, we're hopefully going to get November numbers soon, but this is the best statistics that we've seen so far, lining us up to the most amount of new members in Q4. SoFi's website traffic, if we were to assume that they get similar numbers in November and December going out for Q4, then we would hit an all-time high of 71 million visitors and be at the highest, not just, total number of new visitors, but the highest growth rate as well, leading up to essentially 48.2%, which is even faster than where our revenue is. And yet new members coming onto the platform actually have more products and accelerate new member growth much faster than old members now that there's so many new products. Some of those new products might even be SoFi Crypto. See, SoFi Crypto is expected to be here on December 1st as the waitlist ends on November 30th. So it's sort of the indication that we get for December 1st. And they said that it was going to be here end of year. And we also saw we're going to launch SoFi USD stablecoin, both a payment stablecoin and a deposit stablecoin. And the payment stablecoin we hope to introduce in January, if not sooner. So we have a pretty quick catalyst for buy, sell, and hold crypto coming in December, and then a payment stablecoin coming in January. That's on top of them also announcing that SoFi Pay, using the Lightning Network for Bitcoin, can send money to Mexico, which we've already known about, and that they're going to launch into Europe and Brazil. Okay, some pretty massive areas for remittances as well and sending money abroad. So as that expands, that's only going to lead for more members to have, new products. That leads to more revenue, which even might lead to new customers coming in. If they want the cheapest way to send remittances, it's not going through PayPal or Wise or Western Union. It's actually SoFi now because they have the Lightning Network. And you don't have to go to some shady crypto exchange to do that. You can come to a registered bank in the United States. It's pretty seamless. And last but not least, we have probably the most exciting news if it goes through, and that is the S&P 500 inclusion. On December 5th, we're going to know the announcement of the next revision. It doesn't mean that SoFi ends up getting in. I'm hopeful, but more likely than not, we actually see it in 2026, but we could end up seeing a surprise and them get in on December 5th, 2025, which would be the last possible date that SoFi can get in, barring some merger with two S&P 500 companies, that we get in this year in 2025. So fingers crossed. It's one of the fastest growing financial institutions in just, financial sector names that are even eligible for the S&P 500. Okay. There's only a few. SoFi is one of them and by far the fastest growing, and one that, if we look to Robinhood, for example, could expand the company's market cap by like 20 to 35%, essentially, is what Coinbase saw, what Robinhood saw in some of these names. So very, very excited about this. But let me know what you guys are excited for in the comments down below. If you guys aren't already, make sure you subscribe. But bye for now.